doing, and you get through the fall and you have 23 practices, give or take, and you expect to come out with a little more knowledge and understanding of what we're trying to do. Biggest issue right now is the preparation of the arms, and not necessarily the roles of the arms, but keeping the arms healthy, starting to build pitch counts. That's the most important thing. And then pitch execution and the ability to defend at a high level are also critical to our team. We have to play better defense. I think looking at the fall, that was still a concern of mine coming out of the fall, is how well did we defend as a team? And then if you just go around the horn, position by position, how well are we defending at each one of those positions? Are we making the routine plays, and then do we have the athleticism to make the above average play become something that we see every day?
Are you at the point where you can focus on the situational effect and the finer details, or is it more basic still, first year in the program?
No, we're into the strategic details of this, and as you do that, you're still learning about the personnel. So we're well into some of the tactical pieces, and our staff's already looking at the scouting report and the information on JMU, and that's the focus once we get into the competitive field, is how do we prepare for them. But we're trying to put our nuances in as we continue to assess our personnel, and that goes for the guys on the mound as well as each one of the position players.
You touched on it before we started. What were you doing at this time last year? Like, how would you guys be able to practice compared to obviously what you get to do now?
Right. At Notre Dame, we were in the indoor football facility, which is similar to this, and they had built a new indoor practice facility. So the 5 sports that shared it essentially shared it from when the kids got out of class at 2:15 until 11 o'clock at night. So we were in there, and there were days we had half of that field. There were days we had the full field, but the time slots were very short. You may have an hour and a half or 2 hours. Our indoor batting facility was similar to what we have here at Hauser, so we would share that with softball. So you just had to manage and budget your time, and it is so neat to just come out here and have a day like this where it's 75 degrees and you're out training in an area and a space that you're going to play the games in. And clearly our guys up there function fine indoors, but a day like this at the end of January is remarkable, and we're going to take full advantage of that. It's fun.
It's your third time taking over program, Coach. Like, what have you learned the last 2 times you think that's going to help you hit the ground running even better this time around, you feel?
Try to get your system in place. I think every time you inherit a team, there's talented players on the team. You're trying to get your culture and your system in place. And there's a lot of new verbiage, there's new signs, there's new offensive strategy. The defensive positions are probably slightly different anytime you enter a new program, and that's what you try to do in the fall. When you get to the spring, now you're trying to find the right positions for guys and the right roles on the pitching staff, and we're not there yet with the pitching staff. We're not. I mean, pitching depth is a concern, and those roles will come. But getting your system in place and then starting to move to a more competitive side of what lineups and pitching roles give you the best chance to win in what is a very long season.
I mean, is it just an organic process instilling a culture? Is there ways to kind of make it take hold quicker that you've learned over the years, or is it just something that takes its own sort of timeline?
Well, I think as you train and get into your practices, like we have a 10-minute meeting every day, and that's a time where we build things team-wise, and we're feeding them information, but it's the way you feed information and the expectations you have when you walk out that door as to how you perform in practice. I mean, we're not going to play for a while, so how you perform in practice, repeating that and keeping the gas pedal down, I think brings the culture into form by daily conversation and pushing and the execution every day.
When you have an inexperienced staff and you're talking about the depth and you're trying to fill roles, I guess, just how do you get guys ready for a bunch of different scenarios with the scrimmages that you guys are going through?
We try to build some pitch counts, and then there's going to be a time when the building of pitch counts for certain people may back off, and you may try to bounce guys back more than one outing a week. And I know the hourglass is running out of sand in terms of that preparation model, but it will happen. So right now we're just trying to make sure we stay on point, and the guys that are throwing once a week, try to give them 15 or 20 more pitches their next outing, And then when we get through next weekend, then we're at a point where we have to really figure out who needs to do what and go from there. But it is a delicate art because in our sport, the calendar forces these guys to go home over winter break and do their workouts essentially on their own. So when we get back out here January 9th or 10th, you have to have trusted that they were ready to go because you don't have enough time to just kind of start from ground zero with the arms. And they've been great, and Chuck has done a masterful job of giving them the information so that they can come back as prepared as you could expect when you're not with them every day.
It seemed like from the fall to this past weekend, a lot of guys breaking balls have kind of taken a step forward, and I know that's what you guys want to see is have an out pitch. Just how encouraging was that to see this past weekend?
It's great, Brett, and we have to have it. We have to have the ability. I think that was a glaring strength of their program last year, was the ability for them to strike people out. I mean, they did it at a very, very high rate, and there are some new faces here that are going to have to take hold of that same concept. And where you throw those breaking pitches, where you throw those fastballs in counts that allow you to strike people out, we need to have that. The less the ball's in play, the better your chances are of winning games. And some of the younger guys, even though they're good breaking balls, when you're throwing these to Ferrer and Smith and Tibbs and some of the guys carry on that have logged at bats, that breaking ball that you threw in high school, maybe the same pitch here, but the recognition, the ability to manage it by older, experienced hitters is clearly better. So where you throw these pitches now becomes critical.
You mentioned the time is kind of ticking down till opening day when they're pressure washing and things are getting done. Just the excitement brewing to finally, for that day to get here and for you to make your debut, for this team to make their debut. I mean, how
Can't
excited
wait,
are you?
can't wait. And you start to get to that point, and every coach will tell you in every sport, you're ready to play somebody else. And today was the first day that I felt it a little bit because in some measure, that group in this other dugout to square off with somebody else is the essence of all of this, the essence of competition. But we can't look past like our daily preparation and all of the things that go into it. And I think the pressure washing and the new graphics that they're putting up in the concourse are going to be beautiful. That's kind of the same buildup we have to what's going on. And we're not ready just yet for people to come see Hauser at its best. And our team is still in that growth phase. And the guys are engaged and they're operating at a high level. We just have to keep it going down the stretch here.
You mentioned wanting to see somebody else. Are they at that point yet, or are they still kind of learning and growing amongst themselves?
Well, we're still growing.
Yeah.
And at some point, what you have and how capable you are and how knowledgeable you are of your system, you're going to have to play. So they may be ready right now, they probably are, but we are not as a group completely polished in some of the space that I know we need to be executing at a higher level when you start to play these games. And every one of these games, every game, and these guys understand it, every pitch of every game is so critical when you're looking at your resume, and it starts February 17th.
Coach,
Go ahead, Ryan.
okay. Coach, following up a little bit on your pitching, you talked about it. You've got great bats. That some of the pitches you threw in high school aren't going to fly against some of these guys in practice. Just to have that luxury in practice, to know that you've got those bats, just how much do you feel that's going to help evolve your pitching maybe sooner rather than later?
Right, it teaches them feedback instantly. Like when you throw a 1-2 breaking ball that's not located right and Jaime Ferrer smokes it back through the middle, like the message is pretty clear that that wasn't executed. So as your offensive capabilities improve and increase and the personnel grows and improves, like the lessons are right in front of your face when you're on the mound. And we're gonna need all of these arms, the older ones that you will recognize names, and then there's some new ones, the Jamie Arnolds and the Ben Barretts, that are going to have to step out there and impact this thing immediately. So the lessons need to be noticeable and impactful, and they get one outing a week to learn, and they're not throwing 100 pitches, so each one of those pitches is a learning experience, and we have the technology and the metrics to dive in a little bit deeper and give them some feedback on how their specific pitches play, even the ones that are not put in play. So I think we have a good mixing pot of information to give them, and like you said, there's no better feedback than when you make what you think was a good pitch and it turns out to be something that somebody hits really hard. So there's a combination of how they learn.
I don't know if there's any standards in the profession of how often you scrimmage, how often you compete. If there is, if you have a feel for that, are you more on the plus side of that or less than that? Or what are you looking for in terms of the competition?
Completely dictated on how many pitchers you have. and we have just less arms than I've experienced in the past, just the sheer number of pitchers. So the bounce back is one thing. The number of guys that are able to bounce back is another thing. So we'll scrimmage a little bit in the middle of the week. I think if you ask 100 coaches, they're all going to find ways to scrimmage on the weekend to start to line things up. But how capable are you on the Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday of having another shorter scrimmage? I mean, that's dictated on personnel. And we don't want to push people to throw on Saturday and bounce back on Tuesday if we don't feel like it's in their best interest from what we're seeing physically at the time. So, like I said, somebody else asked about the scrimmaging and the prep. I think there's going to be a time where some of these guys that may have thrown longer outings on the weekend may throw a shorter outing on the weekend so that we can bounce them back on a Tuesday or Wednesday to give them the 2 times per week feel heading into the actual season.
And then how is the evaluation process going of composition of different positions?
Well, it's good. I mean, we're moving our outfielders all over the place. We need to figure out who can handle what and who reacts best. You just see over time certain guys that are good outfielders may, for some reason, get better jumps in right field or center field, and you see guys that may excel in left field, and there isn't necessarily a rhyme or reason for every one of those. That's why the evaluation and decisions and the practice reps gives us the information to maybe move people around. And I know Jaime played a really good right field. We tried Jaime in left, and I want him to be comfortable. If that betters the overall group to move an outfielder around, then I'm all for it. And Tibbs, we've tried to acclimate Tibbs at first base. He's a very capable outfielder, but having him with the knowledge and capability to play first base opens up another spot for maybe another left-handed hitter to get into the lineup, which we need. So you just try to test it and feel it out and evaluate it and look at how the group plays as a whole and continue to do it. There's some guys that I think are a little more established and what we've seen and how they play. Carry-on has done a very nice job as shortstop. Cam Smith has settled in and has done a nice job at third base. And Titan Kamaka, freshman, has played well at second. But you have Nander, who we're fortunate that he came back to finish his college career here. So there's another experienced infielder in the middle that wasn't with us this fall, which is a little unusual, but within the rules, that's just fine. So we're trying to move guys around, but you start to find the spots where you feel like they play. Probably more ready for that in the infield right now than the outfield.
I was going to ask, do you have any firm lockdown starters? I mean, I assume Jordan is short, and is it too early to know about other spots?
Well,
like this?
Jordan has handled shortstop very well, and he's athletic, and he's done a very nice job. Cam Smith is a talented freshman. He's played very well at third. Third is a little new to him. He was a shortstop. Most of our infielders were shortstops, and you have to move them. So the time spent on some of the details of learning how to play third base, like at shortstop, you can see the ball travel from the pitcher all the way to the plate every pitch. At third base, you really can't track that just because of the angle. So that ball off the bat and how you visually handle the strike zone, just there's little things there that he has to learn, but he's done a nice job. I think second base is wide open. First base is open for me. Like Cade Bush has done a really nice job. Gunnett Carlson, left-handed hitters, played well and has learned first base. And then Tibbs, who was out this fall, was injured, is back, and he's learning the position. So having guys comfortable where when you start into game settings and you want to push some buttons and make some maneuvers, the more comfortable guys are in various spots that make sense to them athletically, the better off you are as a team.
What about behind home plate? I know you got some guys that have been within the program. You went to the transfer portal as well. What are you seeing out of the catcher's position?
Vincent is solid. He knows what he's doing, and he actually asked if he could make an attempt at his switch hitting, which he did at one time. And he had an injury, so I think he put it aside, but he's trying to figure out his left-handed swing. He's done a nice job. Holbrook's out right now, got a little dinged-up hand, but he'll be back. McGuire Holbrook, big physical guy that was at West Virginia, that very potent, like, offensive force, physical guy. And Lance Triple and Santiago Ordonez and Sebastian Jimenez have all created some good depth and competition behind the plate. So of all the spots on the field, that may be the deepest of all our positions, which is a positive thing.
In terms of Jackson and Wyatt, are they frontline guys for you right now? Do you think they're more coming out of the bullpen, or is that to be determined, you think?
Not ready to make that call. They're frontline guys. Now, whether that means starting, relieving, I don't know. Like, we have some capability with the experienced guys on our staff. There's not a ton of ton of experience, but the guys that we've seen before on this mound, like, they've taken some nice steps. Now, where they fit into a rotation or leverage spots in the bullpen, it's a little tough to say that at the moment.
You comfortable where you're at right now, on the whole?
Oh, I'm very comfortable with where we are. I just want to stay healthy. The depth on the mound is my concern, and we just want to make sure we're healthy and in check.
You talked about kind of whittling down the numbers of the guys who are going to be your starters. I guess, where are you at now, guys, in that starting pitching conversation right now? And when do you kind of like to have the 3 weekend starters ironed out for sure?
Well, after this weekend, we have to start to make some decisions, and then getting into the following weekend, then I think you kind of have to start to mesh who does what. But we're just not there, and we haven't really built. When these guys are throwing 3 innings at a time, we're not really ready to establish the roles yet. We're not. Now, I think we have guys that are capable of filling the roles. We just haven't gotten to the point to nail it down. I'm not in a position to even start down that road yet.
Thanks, Lane.